And we are good, we're live, we're good. Alright, hello, welcome. My name is Random Hamilton. I am your guide and streamer today, and we are going to be jumping back into our piece this week, which is The Man with Only One Remaining Given Name. Just a little bit of a spoiler, that is me. Long story, I'm sure it'll come out over time, or I'm sure I'll talk about it over time. Long story short, we changed our name when we got married. I never liked my middle name, and I ended up just changing my whole name except for my first. And my wife came up with a great title, and we just kind of rolled with it, so yeah. For those who are just starting to stream, welcome on. Really glad to have you here. Today we're going to be delving back into this piece. Nothing too crazy to cover. It's pretty straightforward. We have just been, on Monday, we laid out our pen work. I'm going to go and lower the stream audio real quick, see if maybe that's a little too intense. Monday we started with pencils. We kind of got our framing and layout done. And now we're kind of crashing back into just continuing with doing our drawing. Primarily focus is on ballpoint pen and microns, Sharpie, and then doing that over pencil, kind of blending the two together. I used to try to kind of keep them as their own pieces, as their own beasts. Honestly, I'm finding these days that actually a blending between the two mediums is really where I'm finding my happy place. Allowing the ink work to be obviously on display because it's the highest visual, but also just making sure that I am able to go ahead and get a much wider range of values, and that's really been awesome. Excuse me for a second, I'm going to adjust this camera just so we get a better view of everything and make sure that we're not tilting too hard. Okay, there we go. Let's see here. It looks like we got a guest. I really need to get this multi-chat figured out. Right now, I have to open up each individual stream and kind of have them open just to see who's chatting or see who's here. I believe we have art by Callie here, which is awesome. Thank you so much for joining out. Moderator from S Comic Maker, I believe. Fantastic. I really appreciate you popping by the channel and checking things out. Go ahead and do this. Let me turn audio off on this guy, and then that way I can be in the YouTube chat. Morning. Oh, and it looks like my mother is on this stream, which is great. Cool. Nice to see you, Mom. Welcome. Welcome to the thing. So this is what it is. All right, y'all. So we're going to kick off. Just a heads up for those who are new here. I am a stay-at-home dad. So that means I have a 2.5-year-old chilling out behind me, and there are going to be times where I have to step off the stream. There are going to be times where I have to go take care of something that's a little more priority. And I'll just put it on pause, and then we'll be right back to it. The stream schedule today is going to be from now until 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, I usually take a break, go and spend some time with my son, and go on a walk, do lunch, and then I'll be back this evening, usually around 4, but I've got a meeting at 4 o'clock. So I'll be back from 4:30, and we'll be streaming again from 4:30 to like 6:30. So we're just going to keep pushing along. We're going to make some good progress today. I'm really happy with where I'm at. We're not shooting for perfection, we're shooting for completion. And that's kind of the way I'm going to be approaching the artwork and all this going forward. For those in chat, is the audio too loud? Is my mic up? Just want to make sure that you're getting the clearest audio. I've been going back and re-listening to some of my videos, and I feel like maybe we're not staying as volume clear as possible. So if you notice any audio issues or you think it could be improved, please pop into the chat. Give me a heads up, and I will absolutely clean it up and make sure it's a lot better to hear. All right, let's get some lights on here. Hey, monkey. How's your snack? Is your snack good? All right, kiddo. Dad's jumping on the stream. All right, y'all. Let's get cracking. So, when we look at where we're at right now, I was having a conversation with my wife about this last night. She's like, I don't really get this piece. And, that happens. There's, when we're talking about a combination of abstract art to lowbrow art, which is technically what you would terminalize my art, what you would call my art is lowbrow art. And it's not so much because it may, if you're not familiar with that term, that may seem a little derogatory, but it's actually not. It's a classification of art that blends between darker subject matter, a little bit of abstract, and really is kind of a wide bucket to just kind of grab a bunch of art that isn't always the quickest or easiest read, or sometimes is a little bit like darker in tone, especially if it leans into this kind of abstract expressionism. I like to base my art in kind of that lowbrow space, but I also feel that for me, it's really great to integrate a lot of personal elements and aspects into who I am as an artist, into the subject matter. Now, that's not to say that's where I always go with it. Like, often we'll be doing artwork that, when we have requests from you, our viewers, that will really change and define where we invest our time in artwork. But when left to my own devices, I often fall here. It's just kind of natural to me. Just one of those things. Yeah. Is the remote not working, buddy? You want to say hi?
Yeah.
Hi. You want to say hi?
Yeah.
Hi.
Ow.
Hi. Okay, let's go fix the remote. Guys, I'll be right back. I gotta fix the remote. Muting for a moment. Alright, y'all, let's go ahead and get cracking on this. So, we're going to go ahead and we the last couple days I really... Kid, come on, get out of it. Otto. Alright, let's get to some actual artwork here, instead of just chasing around my child. Okay, so, things we need to kind of focus our attention on right here. We are going to go ahead and start around the neckline. I really focused most of my effort this week on the upper portion of the head. I just really thought that was like the main point of action, and the main point of defining where I want the eye to go. So I really... All right, let's go ahead and get back to this. Apologies, I have got a toddler and he just does not want to be able to have my attention elsewhere sometimes, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just kind of got to deal with that, occupy his attention, get him excited about something else, and then you can kind of carry on. So we're going to keep carrying on. Let's get our neckline in. So the reason I'm going to start with the neckline is because, you know, there's not many things on here that are anchor pieces, right? But then what I mean by anchor pieces is I mean a piece that transitions from one part of the drawing to the other. So this upper head is kind of its own thing, its own action moment. All this extra crap's going on, it's exploding, all these ideas are flying out of the head. But once we get kind of to the neckline, none of this matters down here. This is effectively its own separate part of the piece. So when I'm thinking of a piece like this, there's not necessarily a lot of impetus to go ahead and try to nail the whole piece equally in tandem at once, like do all the pencils and do all the inks, because a lot of what happens up here is kind of in the moment. Whereas as you're drawing and as you're like layering your textures, in this case lots of smoke, what I'm doing is I am developing that visual identity just as I work with the pen. And so as once I'm done with all that, well, all that explosion and all that intensity just comes from this one single point. Down here, none of that matters. So it's really about making sure that for these transition pieces, I'm very clear on exactly how I'm going to approach them, because I want to make sure that it doesn't feel like two separate pieces of art. So it does two things, right? It integrates the artwork into a new space, but it also allows us to go ahead and kind of change the conversation a little bit. This is all crazy and wacky up here, but it doesn't have to be crazy and wacky out here to such an extent, because if I go overboard, then there's too many places to be looking. There's too many places to try to be focusing the attention of the viewer on the artwork. So I really want to make sure that I kind of spend my crazy artwork equity in certain places on the piece. And then the rest of the piece is about making sure that all the attention still stays focused up here, but the line work drags you down here, over here, and then up here. Just 1 second here, going on mute for a moment. Sorry about that, y'all. My wife called. So this is just going to be the pace of it whenever I'm streaming. I hope you're here to enjoy the art and not for my quality of being able to stay on focus, because between my wife calling for grocery requests and my son needing attention, it's just going to be how it is. Bubba, can we keep that off, please? No, let's keep that off. Keep that off. It's too much noise, buddy. Neil, let's keep it off, please. Let's keep it off. Where's your iPad? We're keeping this. 1 second, please. Okay, let's start drawing. So we've got the neckline in. Structurally, that's going to be really important. I'm not going to worry too much about the details here on the crinkle. Like, obviously, the shirt's going to crinkle. I should probably define the structure really quickly and just really make sure I'm clear on what's going to happen there, because I've got a lot of kind of laid in line work, but it's not necessarily doing a lot of help for us. It's just kind of scribbles. So the more we lay in this kind of detail, how's the shirt wrinkling, where's it wrinkling at, that will just kind of make, when we go in with pen, so much smoother. Alright. So So I'm just laying in this understructure. Okay, I'm going to take my blue pen, or my blue pencil. For those who are new, you'll notice that I am juggling between different colored leads. The reason for that is because I actually really enjoy creating kind of a visual contrast. And the blue just pops better on top of the green. The green's almost like photosensitive like pencil, so it doesn't scan as well, it doesn't ink as well. But it's nice because it stays pushed back. So you can really do a lot of lower frame work. Use your pencil to bring it up so your detail work comes out. And then of course the moment you go over the pen, that pencil just disappears. It goes right away. Good job playing with Batman and Bane, buddy. Hey, Bubba, can you take Batman and Bane to your bedroom, please? Yeah. Okay, take them in your room. Good job. Thanks, buddy. Love you. I know. The negotiations that go on with the 2-year-old is epic. Alright, so we're just laying in this neck. Now, you're going to, if you try to think about this thing logically, this shirt neck, it really makes you question, like, well, where's the back of the neck? And in my perspective, the back of the neck's kind of like right here on the piece. And then you'd have like this shift up for the shoulders kind of raised. So the shoulders are almost kind of dipping down because the shoulders are raised and they become down. Hey, Bub, please take them into your bedroom, okay? Take them into your bedroom, please. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to keep going on those lines we laid down with the green pencil just to kind of show that little bit of wrinkling and bunching of the cloth up here. Now again, none of this is so precious, right? What I mean by that is, we get caught up sometimes when we're making our artwork that it has to be just so. Oh, that doesn't look realistic. Oh, that proportion's off. Oh, the way that lays down is off. And I gotta tell you, I have never been so certain as time's gone on as an artist of what you can get away with as an artist, because a lot of people's perspective on the way something should look goes right out the window if they look at it and they just don't think about it, right? So you're just trying to do your best to communicate your idea, and the perfect t-shirt or the perfect wrinkle or the perfect shape isn't always really that relevant. Sometimes you just need to have something down for people to like look at and be like, oh, that makes sense, that feels right, and they'll just move on. And so a lot of wasted equity and worry happens around how things are looking, how they should look, or how they don't look. And often you can just ignore that and just avoid that because it's just not important. You lose a lot of time trying to make something that's super vital in your opinion, but honestly, nobody's going to even notice it. Or if they do notice it, it'll be such a small thing that they just move right past it. Alright, so I've got a lot of business going on down here, so we've got this structured in. 1 second, please. All right, apologies about that, y'all. I had to banish my child to his bedroom. Thank God for baby gates. Okay, let's get back to work. Okay, so there's a lot of undescript down here. Let me explain where my mind is at. One of the ways that I often represent my idea, right? One of the ways I often will express my creativity is through kind of an inky blackness of like shapes and amorphous like characters and tentacles and all the other things. And one of the things you really have to consider is like, yeah, you can make a bunch of that stuff, but it can get really visually confounding really quickly. So you have to like really be sure about where you're going to spend that drawing equity, you know, how much of it you're going to put in. Because before you know it, this entire thing can be just chaos from top to bottom, and it only works because up here is the focus of the chaos. So I need to figure out exactly what's down here. Now the initial idea was to kind of have like a couple of my creatures kind of creeping up, and then these tentacles we're going to kind of be building and slowly grabbing around and grabbing my hand and grabbing the mic. But one of the things I still need to hit is this story of the man with only one remaining giving name. And one of the things I was hoping to do, and I still plan on doing, is still injecting the names that I no longer have into the piece of artwork. And so the question is where? Where do I want to go and put that kind of information here into the page? I'm thinking that it maybe have to be in this general space. One part of me thought, hey, I could go ahead and just do like a shirt decal, because that'd be kind of cool. But there's actually a ton of black already. So, you know, then it limits my options. Then I have to do a lot of heavy shading down here, and that actually might draw the eye down from the top, which is one of my biggest concerns. You know, again, so much of working on a piece of art like this is talking it out, thinking about where it's all going to happen. Because if you just let your hand drive, before you know it, you're going to put yourself into a corner where you're then starting to have to accommodate for things you just have to deal with. It's not the ideal. You're not giving yourself all of the range of opportunity to just explore the art how you want to explore it, because art, you know, pen is additive. So you can only put so much down on the paper before you start not being able to go backwards. So that's just a thing to really think about. You know, if you're used to working in digital, or if you're used to not, you know, just kind of drawing, that's great. But if you have a piece with some really clear intent, that can be a little bit messy. Okay, so let's see. What are we going to do here? I think I'm going to go ahead and keep going with the idea of like the little ideas made out of black, because what's really nice about those is those can be almost solid black. And it lets me kind of cut down a little bit on the extra drawing I have to do up top, which isn't so much a problem because I like doing detail work. But again, I'm really cautious about overdoing just how much detail is down here, because I just don't want to distract from the upper area here. It's very important to kind of find that balance. So we're going to do one tentacle. I'm going to go ahead and just make some commitments here by putting the blue pencil down. Blue pencil is a lot harder to lift out of the paper. So this is kind of my way of saying, all right, I'm doing this. You know, it's everybody has that, you know, whatever medium you use, there's kind of a point of no return, or at the very least a point of really difficult return. So that's where we're at. We're going to just accept the fact that this is a shape we have to work in, and let's go ahead and put one here, and I'm going to go ahead and have this guy just wrap right up onto the microphone. Because again, if we're going with all black, then you won't even think about the fact that I'm kind of drawing over stuff that's already been established. Again, you know, I think I talked about this earlier in the week, but when you work with pen, it's often the thought that, oh, it's, you know, you drew it on paper, it's done, it's final. But no, pen is just one more medium that has a range of manipulation. Now, the way that you actually manipulate and show pen properly is just about the level of contrast. Now, that's contrast in the darkness on the page, but also contrast in comparison of what's next to that darkness. So if I have a really dark section like here, but then I've got a really bright pop of light next to it, that contrast is allowing me to sell the texture without having to go too crazy on that like heavy pen work. And you'll see some of that up here, where I've just chosen to stick with like looser lines and speed. Okay, so we've got tentacle one here. We've got tentacle one here. I do want to go ahead and have maybe some kind of bannering or word bubbles here. Let's go ahead and see how banners would work. So if I do something like okay. So there's three names that three words that we have to put in here. My last name, my old last name was Hardman, and my middle name was Wesley. So Wesley will be unobstructed. Wesley will be on its own visual art piece, but then Hard and Man, we're going to separate those. Make those a little easier to read and also not be so on the nose. I think I'm going to go ahead and lift this up so that we can go ahead and have this a little more swoopy. Think almost like a ribbon. Yeah, that works. That'll be there. Okay, so we're getting something here. So this, actually, let's let this ribbon follow the contour of the neck. This is also another thing that's always really helpful. If you can get away with it, try to have like forms follow like forms. Even if they're not connected, even if they're a different material. It helps communicate your, not necessarily your story, but it is your story. The thing is like, when you're drawing something like this that kind of lives in that abstract space, you're going to have a lot of stuff going on. Different shapes, different textures, different colors. And the thing that really helps to like blend it all together is if you can have the eye continuously move. And what I mean by that is think about when you're watching somebody who's doing something amazing in sports, right? A dancer or a gymnast. If there's halty stop moves and they're almost going like trick to trick to trick or movement to movement to movement, it can often be a little bit jarring, and you can appreciate the technique, but because there's no flow, there's no connective lead in between the different moves, it can feel halting. Art's the same way. It's very easy to stop somebody in a piece of art, and if you stop somebody's flow on reading a story in a piece of art, you've actually just hurt your own story. You've hurt your own communication. And it's something that every artist will face. It's something that every artwork, you'll have times where you're like, oh, this is going to be the one, and then you make it, and it just doesn't flow. And the thing to combat that is to really step back and look at the rhythm and the directionality of your lines. And if you can get comfortable with finding those directions and then manipulating them, the consistency and the flow of your artwork will just grow immensely. So we've made this banner that's kind of floating in front. I'm not going to say whether that banner's on his t-shirt. I'm not going to say whether that banner is like something's just floating there, because again, we're playing in the abstract, and why should we? But it's going to accomplish the fact that it's going to allow me to kind of tell that story of the name down here. So I'm going to go ahead and just loosely put that in here. Let's put, I'm not the greatest person when it comes to font, right? And I can spend hours online digging through fonts and trying to find the right one, but in my experience, sometimes you just got to kind of draw it out and see what happens. What I'll usually do is I'll usually lay in my letters so I know what scale I'm working with, and then I'll go ahead and I'll just dig around for some fonts and see if there's something that will work. We know that this is going to be the round bend around the corner of the papyrus, or whatever paper this is. Let's go ahead. All right. So we have our Hardman, our man. Okay. Let's go ahead and have a little creature head pop up right here. will obstruct the back of the hard man. And again, these are just going to be the inky blacks, the inky black creatures, so there's no real defined detail that needs to happen. What I'll probably do is I'll put a few more of these tentacles, because the important part isn't so much the read on the words. There's no real importance necessarily to the piece of the actual name, but it's about communicating that like these are elements that are kind of like part of that history, part of me. So they're present, but they're not like pivotal to the read of the piece. Okay, we got more tentacle there. Something else I'm going to do with these tentacles, just to kind of add a little more interest, they'll almost come to an end, and then they'll actually extend, and then they'll have like little additional, like, almost think like Russian dolls, but these little tentacles expanding, and then they'll have like little hands on them, just to kind of make it a little more interesting. Almost like, instead of just like a single arm, it's more like an amoeba, so to speak. That'll work out. That'll be good. Almost think of the circulatory system, or actually circulatory system, which is great. If you look at our nerves and the maps of our nerves under our body, it's very fascinating. Look at the branch of any nerve, and you'll see the branch branches several times. And then, obviously, there's a reason to kind of give us sensitivity to our whole body. But it's fascinating the way nature does that. Nature treats our circulatory growth the same way it treats a branch. The function of sending resources and then receiving information and growth is the same. It's just a different format, obviously. So we're going to kind of lean into some of that right down here. We'll lean into some of that right there. I'll go ahead and have maybe a tentacle kind of coming up over on this guy. And actually, that's a really good idea. I have a tentacle coming up, and I'm actually going to have the page kind of dip because it's actually interacting with another tentacle. And so there will be a little bit of wrinkling there. Yeah, that'll be fun. Okay. I think the last thing we'll still need to resolve is we'll need to resolve these ropes and how those connect. I can do those last. Let's go ahead and lay in some pen. This is what we have to do, right? When we start putting these pencils down, you can only go so far before you have to make some commitments. So instead of starting up here, around the arm, and then being forced to accommodate in this space, I'm going to start in the area we just developed, and then the surrounding spaces, whether it's the arm, the chest, the neck, those can then accommodate the design on the inside. Now, I'm just going to lay down some Bic, and I'm not going to go too hard. Now, consideration, and something, if you're new to my stream, again, welcome. And for those who are here today, thank you so much for being here. One of the techniques that I use a lot in the stream, and something that if you're returning, you've probably heard about, but we're going to talk about pen painting. I use a Bic because I do what I call pen painting, which is instead of pressing the nib or the ballpoint down into the paper to force the ink to stay in, I use the ballpoint on the side, and I simply lay the ink on the page, and then I drag the ink out, because ink is wet. Ink is a liquid, in this case more of like a liquid gel. And if you don't force the ink down into the paper and force it to be plugged down into like a groove, it just rests on top of the paper. So it's still in its wet state to some degree. And so if you are looking to take advantage of that, you can go ahead and just pull the wet ink with your ballpoint across the surface. And that allows you to go ahead and just be very gentle with it. There's no need to go hard line. We will go there eventually. We know we're going to do that eventually. So, take the opportunity to keep things as non-committal as possible. Because again, even though we're laying pen down, this isn't as permanent as your first inclination. You may be led to believe. We're so used to using a pen, and a pen is what we put down for like very final committed lines. Well, in this case, if you're keeping a pen really light and you're just laying in these frame-in lines, you really can't put yourself into a corner you can't work out of, because you can always go darker. You can always go more intense. You can always pull in a Sharpie or a Micron or some other pen that just has a little more of a committed, like, can't go backness. And we will get there. But right now, by sticking with a Bic, A, it's cheap, which is great, but also it just lets us explore without feeling like we're putting ourselves into a trap. This almost looks like shoelaces. That's totally fine. You have like little fingers popping off it. We'll get there. I'm going to go ahead and just lay in this sleeve. Keep in mind, this is where you have to really think about how these things connect, right? I have this tentacle wrapping onto this sleeve, which means, like cloth, if I'm pushing down and you have a piece of cloth out there, the cloth's going to respond. Now, I'm not going to go super crazy. I don't need it to be super realistic, but it is important to remember that there is, cloth folds, cloth wrinkles, and because I am going to be focusing this little tentacle in this area, it's important that I make sure to just think about those accommodations and just put some lines in there now so I know that I have to resolve those. So this is one part keeping things realistic. This is one part leaving myself kind of like a to-do list visually. And in fact, that's actually a really great way to look at it. When you're working on a piece of art, you're developing a piece of art, again, it's okay to start working on a spot and not resolve it. But give yourself visual reminders of things you want to accomplish later, because if you don't, you will forget. So if you know, okay, I'm going to have wrinkles here, just put a few lines so in your head you're like, I've got to accomplish wrinkles there. Put it on the paper, make sure you make some commitments that you then have to adhere to. Because otherwise, it's very easy to get stopped on a piece. I mean, I'll be to be full transparency. Like, this is a piece that I started running into yesterday, where I was like, man, I can't wait to be done with this piece. The main problem is that I've already got the next piece kind of planned out in my head, and it's a piece that is something that my wife requested in regards to me doing something that's a little more positive, a positive message. Which I don't think my artwork is negative, but I think that when she sees this, she sees a little more of my personal insecurities, the thoughts I have on myself at times, and there's things that I don't always say out loud, but they certainly do reflect who I am, and I don't always see myself in the most positive view. And I think for her, she also is like, I'd love to see you do a piece that's more positive, because I'd like to see a more positive view comes out of it. Now, I don't consider my artwork negative, but, it's lowbrow, it's darker. It's, tonality. I don't necessarily look to develop the warm fuzzies for anybody, especially myself. But I would like to think that the next opportunity I have, so the brief for my life is it has to be more positive. It has to be something that's a little more like, fantasy or something that can be relatable to people, or at least kind of interesting. And then it has to incorporate flowers. And I used to draw a ton of flowers in high school. In fact, one of the ways that I survived high school, because we moved a lot, and I was oftentimes in environments where I was like not in a, it was just a very mixed diversity demographic. And with that, anybody who's grown up in an environment where you have a high mixed diversity population, you have, lower middle class, lower class, general poverty level, you're in public schools and whatnot. One of the ways I avoided trouble and was able to kind of just get through is I drew in junior high and high school for kids and classmates who were bigger than me, or who were more active socially, or were part of a circle that I didn't have an into. I would draw for them, and that kind of gave me like a level of coverage across all these different social groups, and just kind of kept me out of trouble. A lot of people were looking out for me without me having to actually do much other than just draw. Lots of 40 bottles, lots of Old English script, lots of flowers, just kind of high school, junior high and high school. I had a little bit of a break from that when I was in high school. Near my freshman year, I was really heavily into music, but that was a shorter period of time, not long lasting. Let's see. So as you can see, I'm just decided to go ahead and just push in. Start start forcing some of these visual elements. Am I worried too much about the way a shirt will crinkle around the side? Nah. Am I even worried about where the armpit is? Nah, not really. I mean, yeah, it's good to be, proper on that, but who's going to be focusing over here? The attention's going to be over here. So I'm going to be drawing all the attention over here. This is going to be a device to take the eye back up. So let's not worry too much about that. Okay, so I've got the swoopy in. I've got the tentacles. Let's put another tentacle here. I'm glad we're finally making some commitments about what this is. Instead of 2 creatures here, I'm going to go ahead and just leave the 1. And then the 1 creature can just have like tons of little tentacles. And that's fine too. Now, one thing I want to keep in mind, I know I've been talking about this guy being inky black, right? But if I go too black, he will draw all your eye right down here. And that's not what I want. I want the eye to start up here. My goal is to have you come look at this piece and go, bam, right there. And when we finally do the final upload, I'll take this into Photoshop and just make sure to get the highest point of visual contrast there. Just up the, darken the blacks, up the whites, remove the green. And that way it's unobstructed. So with this guy, yeah, he's going to be dark, he's going to be black, but I want to make sure that I don't go just solid black. So I'll probably do a graduation of light, very reminiscent of what's going on here. And maybe I can kind of draw a visual link between those two so that you see it and you just kind of accept that it also could be related to the mic. There we go. So how about you guys? Is there a subject matter that when you're being creative, whether it's your drawing or writing or painting or dance, is there a subject matter that really stands out to you or that inspires you that you like to put into your expression of creativity? One of the things I'm really hoping to do over time and as we develop this channel is I would love the bulk of the artwork that comes out of this channel to be from your thoughts and your ideas. It's great now that I can come up with stuff and kind of doodle, but when I think about what I want this to be, more than a stream for myself, I want to start building ourselves and our community, a creative community. Any creative. Dance, singing, music, writing, painting, drawing, anything. You go and you cut steel apart to make statues, or you go and take old beat-up cars and you rebuild them and give them beautiful paint jobs. That's creative. We can all learn and feed and grow from that. So that's what I'd like to, if I was to give you the 10-second ideal, that's it. I want this to be an environment where somebody can come, no matter what their creative output, and they can find like minds, they can find a wealth of different experiences in life, and we can all just kind of essentially be a creative output and a creative resource for each other. It may sound a little hippie, I'm okay with that. I'm 40. I've got a wealth of time behind me where I could be considered, I was worried about the perception of who I am, whether I thought I was cool or whether I thought I was talented or all that other stuff. You know what? It's really simple for me now. I'm a dad that likes to be home with his son and be a stay-at-home dad. I like to draw, and I like to meet people and be social. And that environment and those restrictions can create this really great space where I don't feel inhibited. I'm completely uninhibited in this moment, which is awesome. It's a great feeling. It took me forever to get here. And hopefully you find that too. I mean, man, I can tell you genuinely now from experience that I have never felt more confident in being able to just sit down and draw than I do at this moment right now. There for years, I struggled with that very thing. And I mean, so much so that up until a few months ago, I hadn't really drawn. I had taken a break for about a year and a half. So I've, recently returned to it when the circumstances were what they were, and I found myself unemployed, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I just let that kind of be the guide to start this up. Let's see. Shabala said on YouTube said, I'm beginning freehand quilting. This is helping with creating a flow and story through shapes on top of print texture. Oh, I love that. There's those old traditional techniques that were used to clothe us because we needed clothes to survive, and how those blossomed into industries of creativity and technique to tell stories. Man, freehand quilting is cool. It's super cool. I'm super excited to hear that. I would love if you don't mind sometime, if you come back to another stream. We're going to work on getting a Discord up where people can share their artwork, and we can all just kind of post our pictures up and kind of talk about what you see, what's inspiring to you. I hope that later on when we have that up and running, we can have you come and share some of your work, because I think that would really introduce a lot of people who don't have access to something like that, who aren't really introduced to it. It may open some doors of people being interested in exploring that a little bit. I think a lot of people think of like quilting and knitting and sewing as something that they were never taught, so it's just not accessible to them. And I'm a big believer. In fact, someday I would love to make my own clothesline, right? Maybe not worry about being, on the runway. That's not where I want to be. I'd rather design 3D and help create inspiration for young designers. But there's something really, really fun about crossing over to a new medium like clothing, or in your case, the freehand quilting. So is that primarily using like yarn, or what's the materials you are generally manipulating when it comes to freehand quilting? I'm pretty unfamiliar with what that entails. Alright, let's look at some fonts real quick. And this is something I can't really put on the screen just due to the limitation. I guess I could add another window. Let's add another window. Let's look up some fonts. We're just going to go off the cuff. We're going to let this just happen naturally. We are coming up on the end of hour 1. I apologize we haven't gotten as much work done. Just kind of in dad mode and trying to make sure we took care of my son first, which is always the most important part of the day. So very helpful. Alright, so we're going to add a box. Let's do a display capture. Let's do a browser source. Fine. And this is going to be my Pinterest. Business hub. I'm not interested in that. So if you have a Pinterest account, you can kind of put yourself to a business account, and it's a real pain in the ass when it does not want to act like you. Oh, there we go. Okay. Home feed. Okay, I think that's working out good. Done. Let's see if this shows up properly. I don't think that guy's quite working. Not a browser source. Let's see. Let's just go and do a display capture. There we go. All right. Okay, we seeing this? Okay, we're here. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look up, the way I usually approach this isn't so much to look up fonts, because we can spend way too much time doing that. Also, apologize for the sheer number of links up here. This is just how I operate. I usually have somewhere in the realm of like 50 to 100 open tabs. It's a thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at hand-drawn font. And I'm just looking for inspiration here. I'm not looking to be like, I'm going to use this exact thing. I'm just looking to find something that communicates the flow and the movement that I'm really attaching to. I really like this. It's nice. It's maybe a little too cursive's not going to really read on the artwork we're working with because we are focused around kind of semi-obstructing it. So maybe something that's a little less sans, or a little less serif, excuse me. And let's just go for a sans serif. I like this. This is nice. I like this a lot. I think this is it, right there. So it's as simple as that. It's looking at just a bit of inspiration to kind of grow, figure out the little details. In this case, it's kind of like the tail end. We're going to go ahead and close this guy now. Let's close this new window. Alright, there we go. Okay, I've got my piece of reference. I'm ready to roll. Let's go into the full screen scale again. Now that may have seemed like kind of a weird waste of time, but let me just assure you that it is very helpful when you're drawing out fonts and text and words to just look at some inspiration, because it really is about trying to think of these things as their own characters. Thinking of letters as their own individual actors on the page. Often letters or words are left kind of like to last. I'm super guilty of this, by the way, so I speak from experience. It's very easy to be like, oh, I'll take care of this at the end. And then you get to the end, and it feels like you've disconnected the words from the intent. I'm just getting my eraser pushed up here. Cool, thank you. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and just start erasing around these letters. Give myself a little bit of clear space so I can actually see what the hell I'm writing. Good. Okay. So I've got a couple A's. Now, one other thing, and this may sound like common sense, but if you're not used to working on letters, you may not think about this and you fall into this trap. So it's really important that if you're going to do a font like this, a hand-drawn font, that you draw consistencies in the like letters. So in this case, we have the A, and this A reference that I pulled has kind of like a swoopy top. And I have another A right here. I should go ahead and make sure that I do this A here. Now, one thing I will say is I'm going to make sure that this A down here has a slightly different tilt. Because these A's are right next to each other, I don't want them to draw such a visual comparison that you kind of jump between them and then skip past the word. So I'm going to go ahead and just give that top with this bottom A just a little more of a lean to the left. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and follow the sensibilities of the R for the N here. So we're going to go for a real rounded top. Sweep that down. And then have that come back up. And I'm going to give this a little more of a thickness on the top of the N. This N will inform the N. So you'll see what I'm doing is I'm kind of piggybacking. At this point, I got the inspiration for the font, and I kind of started with the A, but at this point, I'm not even looking at the reference. I'm just, following the lines that kind of came from the previous letters and allowing that to really tell the story. And, this isn't how you necessarily have to operate, right? But this is what I have found as a creative has always been a much easier way for me to work into font is, pick a starting point. For me, it's that point of reference. And then just let the art kind of take you where it's going to go. And that sounds so silly to say it like that, but if you have made art before, you'll understand that it's a journey. When you're creating a piece of art like this, you're along for the ride just as much as the viewer eventually. If you ever hear about famous sculptors who sculpted in marble, they always talk about they don't know what the sculpt is going to be until the block of marble speaks to them. And what that means is, as they're working the block of marble and as they're working with the medium, parts of the marble is going to break off. They can't. There's no complete mastery over material because material is going to respond the way it's going to respond because there's subdermal cracks, there's infrastructure challenges. Maybe a piece of solid marble has another material kind of inside of it, so that when you go and you tap on that area, a big chunk breaks off because it wasn't solid marble. It was like there's like a seam inside. So I have always truly felt that working in pen is and on paper is much the same way. You know, try as you might and as convinced as you are, there is no sure way to guarantee that the ink, the paper, the pencil, the eraser marks, there's no certain way that all of that is going to be acting in the way that you want it to every single time. You don't have that option. Now, the greater your technique, the better you are able to cope with the unexpected things that happen. And I think that's one thing that I really wish art schools and those who educate in art taught to young artists more. You know, there is a Jesus take the wheel, so to speak, kind of situation where you just kind of have to let it happen and accept where you go. And if you can do that, then all of a sudden there's a freedom that will come to your artwork where you're not constantly being surprised and then trying to put out fires, but instead you're being surprised and going, okay, well, this is a new opportunity. Okay, well, this is interesting. Okay, this will work out pretty good. And you're just giving yourself the room to be surprised and you know, become a fan as the journey goes. And I think that's where like a lot of artists can really fall in love with their pieces, is they fall in love with the journey of the production. Of when they were making it, there was this thing that happened, there was this moment that occurred, there was this line they put down, and it all just spoke to them. And that's a very common thing. That's why a lot of artists have a hard time pricing their artwork. Because how do you quantify and how do you price a valuable experience that you've just gone through, and to you feels profound, to you feels exceptional, right? You had conquered this piece that you were struggling through or had a greater meaning to, and then they get so attached to that process, and they conflate that attachment with the artwork itself. And that's something that I've always strove to not allow myself to happen. I do not, and I will not ever. Yeah, right. Discoveries, not mistakes. That's exactly right. You know, I've always chosen not to put a price tag on my work. I've done 3 galleries in my life. I've never gone home with a single piece of my work, which is awesome. And the reason for that is because I set my artwork to $1 auction. So I started at $1, I put an auction tag on it, and I let the gallery run it. If it's a coffee shop, or if it's a in one case I was showing it Compound. It was a way back in the day place. Hey, welcome on, Schecter. Glad to see you back, sir. Hope your day was good at work. Thanks for coming back, dude. Nice to have you. One of the things that I think that I have really always resolved for myself is that the artwork and the income from the artwork is not the point. The artwork is almost like it's a chance for me to, just like Chevelle said, it is the path to discovery. It is an experience that I really value. But it's also a chance for me to go ahead and put something out there and then let it go and move on in my life. Whenever I would work in sketchbooks when I was in college, when I got to the end of the sketchbook, I would often leave the sketchbook in a coffee shop. I would finish the artwork. I'd finish the art I was working on. I wouldn't sign it. I never worry about signing my work. To this day, I don't sign my work. I'm good today, Schecter. How are you today, man? You know, we're just kind of crushing along. I'm hoping to finish this piece today. I've got another piece behind it that I'm really excited to work on, so just kind of pushing through. Had some great conversations already on the channel, so I'm glad you could join us, sir. My son's in the room. In fact, guys, I'm going to take a quick 30 seconds and just go check on my son. He's kind of quiet. I know he's hanging out in his room, so give me one moment. Be right back. All right. I'm back. Thank you for that break. My son is in great shape. He was just needing some juice, but was hanging out quietly. And it looks like we're jumping on our trampoline as well, so who knows. For those who are joining me or just returning, thank you for joining me today. I'm glad to have you here. Today we're just kind of crushing on, you stood in traffic for 4 hours, Schechter? That sounds horrible. Were you stationed in traffic or just happened to be out there? Those who don't know, I believe Schechter has mentioned before on the stream that he's a soldier. So often his work requires him to be stationed in different areas and things like that. Hi. Yeah, good job. Yeah. Okay, it's true. It's true. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, buddy. It's gonna be it's actually gonna be one of those really cool things as my son gets older, and he starts being able to talk a little more consistently. I'm excited to be able to start doing artwork where I can have him kind of be the one offering the brief on the channel. So we'll interview him, we'll come up with some ideas, and then we'll go ahead and that could be a fun day to go ahead and do some artwork that is based around what he would like to see. Hey, monkey. Yeah, that's right. That's what Daddy's drawing right now. What do you think? Interesting? Yeah? Okay. Alright, so let me just go ahead and just clarify some stuff here. I have this rope that's sticking out. This is also very good to do if we're working on this. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, buddy. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Hey, Bubba, where's your iPad? Did you leave your iPad in your bedroom? You want to go plug it in? Should we go plug our iPad in? All right, drivers have gone crazy today. Why are there so many? That is the question. Here in Portland, Oregon, we have terrible drivers. Terrible drivers. I don't know how it is in Russia. I believe that's where you said you were located. But man, that's a worldwide issue. People are just bad drivers. I mean, I think the problem is if we broke it down to Burke was here too. Garbowski checking you out. Oh, sweet. Man, I need to go to this joint stream chat. I missed it totally. I would say that bad driving is a universal issue in every country. Although countries definitely have different challenges with local norms. All right, let's see here. Okay, we're running our race cars down the ramp. Sorry about the noise, yeah. I'm going to go and lower the mic volume just a little bit so you're picking up a little bit less of that. Alright. Okay, so we have really made some nice progress here. We've really laid in exactly where everything's going to be at. We didn't have any of this when we started the stream, so that's really great news. We know how the tentacles are wrapping around this here. The hands are good. We have the rope that's good. We have more banner work that's going to come down here. So I don't want to show right too much yet, but this is kind of the flow of it. The more of this kind of stuff that you can put down, that kind of just signs off, I guess, so to speak, kind of says this is what this is going to be. The easier it is to breathe on the way this stuff works here. 1 second here, my wife just showed up. Hey guys, I'll be on mute for just a second, but I'll continue to draw. My wife's home and there's just gonna be she'll be going through and talking about something a little bit. So be on mute. All right, hey, Checker, I think you should absolutely go to bed. Get some sleep. You had a long work day. The stream is always on YouTube. And again, if you happen to come up with some ideas or things you'd like to see, man, I would love to do a piece with You Considered. You've been my most common return guest. And in my opinion, that gives every reason that I'd love to do a piece that's centered for you or maybe do a piece for you. So if you can think of what you'd like that to be, shoot me a message on Instagram. You can just go to Instagram. You can find me under the exact same name, Random Hamilton. You can find me on Facebook, or you can find me on ArtStation if you'd like to contact me directly. Shoot me a message, man. I would love to do a piece for you. It would really be the start of what this channel should be, which is doing artwork for you guys. So think about it. If you'd show up for bed, totally understand, man. Long work day. The last thing I want to do is sit there and listen to somebody jabber. It'd probably actually put me to sleep. But I hope you have an amazing night, and I'm sure I'll see you a little later on. And again, if you think of a cool idea or something you'd like to see, no matter what it is, if it's interesting to you, that's all that matters to me. So just think about it and get back to me. So one thing we're going to have to learn on how to navigate is when my wife is home and my son is home, there's just not going to be any way for the house to be quiet, which means that no matter what, y'all are going to hear lots of house noises, and it's not going to be the best thing to listen to for me to have my mic open. I'm not quite sure how to resolve that yet. We will figure that out, because this is a work in progress, as we've said many times, and there is nothing is solved. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to do my best of a combination of being on mute and then a combination of talking, and we'll see where we land with things. But, at the very least we can hang out and draw, and then I can just answer questions through chat. On you. All right. Hey, that sounds great, man. And again, thank you so much for showing up, even to say hi. That's such a huge motivation for me. And just having having people return and just hang out is everything I want. So thank you so much for being here. You're amazing.
I don't think you say thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good job. Good work. Nice words, buddy. Okay. So a couple things that are happening here. So we have resolved how all of this functions. We've resolved all the actors here. I've got the little creatures down here in the corners. I've got the words in. And it may feel like we've packed a ton into this, and it doesn't necessarily make sense. And that's okay. We're not trying to go for perfection. We're trying to just get our story elements in, and we'll blend it all together as one. Oh, that's Mama's purse. Take it to Mom. Take Mommy's purse to her. It's not for dress up, buddy. So let's go ahead and get our. This banner is pretty much in and committed. Let's do another banner. This one I want to kind of have here. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just let the random Hamilton be the title header on this. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring this guy down. There's lots of details there. I'm just going to bring this guy here. Not like that. That banner kind of has like a wrapping here. Now this is something that came from back in the day. Me and my cousin Donovan used to draw banners all the time. Like that was our thing. We just drew banners with words through high school all over the place. It was junior high too. That was the thing. I don't know why we like banners so much. It was kind of a weird thing. You do like banners with like a rose in the center. That'd be a really fun project for a day. Is to do a day of banners and roses. You see what came of that. Alright guys, I'm going to go mute for a little while longer. It's just a little too much ambient in here. But I will hop off mute as soon as it is viable. Alright, y'all. I think I'm going to wrap the stream a little early. You know, it's one of those things where the art's flowing and the room's comfortable, and right now it's a lot of distractions, and I can't keep the focus. But I'll be back today about 4:30, and I'll be on from 4:30 to 6:30. So if you're interested in continuing on this journey, jumping back in with me, hop back on. We will crush this piece today. I want to move on to the next piece. Hopefully tomorrow I can put this guy posted up, do a little Photoshop on it just to kind of lighten certain areas. And then, yeah, but thank you so much for being here today with me. I really look forward to the next time you can stop by, and hopefully you can be able to afternoon stream, and sun will be down for a nap, and it'll all be a lot easier. So, alright, talk to you guys later, and thanks again. Peace.